Joining ship, you are on your yellow card.
I'm retired anyway, so no problem. You guys can continue you guys can continue the conversation. All right, Captain Busayo, I think the floor is yours. I will mute everyone so that
Right.
and I will mute myself as well. Welcome to everybody in the class today. Hope you're all fine.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone.
Evening, sir.
Good evening. Yeah. Even though we'll still be waiting, we're still expecting some more. We're just gonna kick start now. So today, like we discussed, we're gonna be discussing on MLC, which is the Maritime Labour Convention. And I will start by saying the Maritime Labour Convention is really our own right on board, and it's a freedom of right is our right of bill as well. And what is this Maritime Labour Convention? It is to satisfy or set a very good standard, or an high standard, if I want to put it, if we are following the working and living conditions of seafarers on the ship. And this also includes, onboard compliance. So the working and living conditions of seafarers on the ship, and of course, compliance of even the seafarers on the ship for working on such, for such a vessel. And this LLC applies to, every ship. It came out in January 2017. It came out in 2016. Sorry, I'll start from there. And it applies to all our ships, especially the ships that you're working on. And it comes with certificates, which we will be talking about in the course of this class as well. So the MLC on itself is broken down into parts and segments, and the most important one is for us to know what the 5 titles of the MLC is. And number 1 will be the minimum requirement for seafarers to work on a ship, which is the first title of MLC. Then the second one will be the condition of employment, which is the second title. And as we're going, I'm going to be breaking all this down for us. Then the third important one is the accommodation and recreation facilities, food and catering. There's accommodation, recreation facilities, food and catering. Then the fourth one, which is very important to seafarers, under the MLC, is the health protection, medical care, welfare, and social security protection. It's all under the fourth one. The health protection, medical care, welfare, and social security protection. And then the fifth one, which I would say is the most important one, because if you have rules and regulations and you do not set a pillar to enforce it, it will not be enforced. But the fifth title is the compliance and the enforcement of MLC. Fifth title will be compliance and enforcement of the MLC. I started by saying that it came into force 2013, August 2013. That was when the MLC, fully came in force. And there are many countries that ratified the MLC on its own, which Nigeria, the UK, happen to be a part of it. And if you go online, there are so many countries, but there are still some countries who are yet to get into the MLC. So now let's break it down. I started first by saying the MLC is divided into 5 titles. And this is because, the MLC tried to set a balance on not only protecting the seafarers itself, but also protecting the ship owners. So it is not like, it's giving a right to seafarers, as well also is giving a protection itself to the ship owners. And I'll explain that in the first title, which is the minimum requirement for seafarers to work on a ship. What's this minimum requirement? Now, this minimum requirement is broken down into four subtopics. I would say, I'll call it number one, minimum requirement to work on the ship. And the other minimum requirements is even broken down into four subsections, which is one, the most important one, is, as 1.1, the minimum age. The minimum age for seafarers to work on a ship. And the minimum age for seafarers to work on a ship as far as Maritime Labour Convention is 16 years. And if you are between 16 and 18 years, you are considered a young person, which I will still explain that, because that now makes your hours of work and hours of rest quite slightly, a little more than slightly different from other people. So one, no seafarer is expected to be on board if he is less than 16 years old. As per MLC, it is a breach of the regulations. And if he's above 16 years old, but not up to 18 years old, is considered as a young person. And a young person, you treat them like, the last born. And not just informal way of treating them like a last born, but you have to also follow a different hours of work and rest. That's the numbers of hours they work, the numbers of hours they rest, the breaks at which you give them. We will discuss that in between. So that's one. Then the two, no seafarer, which is, I would say it's 1.2 as per the MLC convention. No seafarer is expected to be on board without a valid medical certificate. And that is why your medical certificate on board is very, very compulsory, because this satisfies that the seafarer working on the ship is medically fit for his position. And that is why even some medical certificates, they do have some restriction, some comment. I've not seen it in Nigeria medical certificate, but on ENG1, because I'm working in the office here, I have seen all sorts of ENG1 certificates, They would say, they call it like a restricted ENG1 certificate. But there is another one. There's ENG1 and there's, I think it will be ENG3 or something like that. And that ENG3, ENG1, for those who don't know, is the UK medical certificate, just like the Nigerian NEMASA medical certificate or other classes certificates. So we deal with the ENG1. So sometimes I get, instead of seafarers bringing an ENG1 medical certificate for me, which is the medical certificate, I've forgotten, I will need to get that number, right? I think it's an ENG3. They give me an ENG3. And what does an ENG3 says? The doctor has written a 6-month medical certificate, which is supposed to be 2 years. But the doctor gives this seafarer 6 months. And I'll tell you one of the funny reasons. He needs to reduce his weight. That's just a reason for one of my ABs, as in, yeah, but I know, yes, the guy loves the McDonald's and all this, and it's really, I know. But this is what I'm talking about. This is how, the flag state that makes sure that there is strict compliance. We don't just give you medical certificate. So I'm going to give you a medical certificate, but I'm going to give you a restricted medical certificate. So now coming down to all other ones, there are 2 years medical certificate. But during this COVID time, but still everybody knows what's going on with the hospitals and the the NHS for those in UK and in Nigeria. I don't know about Nigeria, but the hospitals have been so filled up with the COVID. So for the UK, I do not know how Nigeria brought them, but in the UK, the MCA brought out their own new regulation. Like, see, we understand how guys are meant to comply and to have a medical ENG1 certificate. And also we understand how it's now going to be very difficult during this trying COVID-19 pandemic period to get an ENG1 certificate. So what we're going to do is anyone with a 2 years medical ENG1 certificate, I call it ENG1, it's still a medical certificate, and it has expired during this pandemic time, will be given a 6-month extension period without you doing calling or applying for the extension. It's just going to be automatic as long as you know it by having the it came out just like a notice. You have the notice attached to the ENG1. So this is how Flag State have been able to ensure that people are still complying even in a COVID pandemic time. That's very important, and everybody here know how important it is if you do not have your ENG1 certificate before, your medical certificate before going, on board. So that's for medical certificate, and that has guided the ship owners to be able to know the kind of seafarers they bring on board before. So if you are not medically sound, if you are not of the age, the seafarers has the right to decline you of the job. So that moves me down to 1.3, which is the training and your qualification. The training and qualification doesn't only stop at the STCW, it comes down to MLC. But it has now guided the ship owner. See, anybody you are giving any position to, it must be trained and qualified for that position. For instance, even though the guy knows the head of, the head of Donald Trump, if he doesn't have a master license, he cannot be a captain on the vessel. Even though he has all the engine, mechanics, and everything on his head, blueprints on his head, if he doesn't have an engine COC, he cannot be an engineering officer on board. And then that comes down even to if he has a less than 3,000 gross tonnage as a second officer or as a chief officer, he cannot be a chief officer on a vessel greater than 3,000 gross tonnage. So there are nitty-gritties and there are different precedent that has been set towards that angle, but that can be discussed in another time. But for every single position that you occupy on board, as per MLC and as per STCW combined, but MLC is really enforcing it, you have to be trained and qualified for that position. And that is the 1.3. And that takes me down now to the 4th one, which is recruitment and placement. So recruitment and placement now, this is now when the MLC, after protecting the ship owners, are now trying to protect you yourself. And that is when they bring out what we call SEA for the recruitment, which is called the Seafarers Engagement Agreement. And the Seafarers Engagement Agreement, there will be, if we have time, I will still go into what will be found inside the Seafarers Engagement Agreement. But it is a standard agreement that must be agreed on between a ship owner and a seafarer prior to the seafarer going on board. Example, is it a time voyage? Is it a time contract or a voyage contract? A voyage contract such as we are sailing from Nigeria to Singapore. It must be stated there. You don't just put me on the ship. It is not a matter of, oh, I really need a job. No. It is a matter of, even though you really need a job, the MLC has protected you that the ship owner also must be able to say, give you a standard agreement to coming on board. So now if it's a voyage charter, it will be stated there. And what I mean by voyage charter, moving from one point A, port of Singapore, down to port of Gibraltar, and then you disembark. And how many days after you arrive port of Gibraltar that you will disembark, it will be stated here. If it's a time charter, is it a 2-month contract from January to May, and how many months after May, it will be stated there. Also another thing that will be stated there is, the terms and conditions, your repatriation and other conditions, which me I do not want to really go into because we still have quite a lot to go into. But every basic thing that the MLC has required from a Seafarers engagement agreement must be found in the SEA, and your SEA must be in compliance. So this is an eye-opening to people who go on board without a contract. And I would share much light on what you should find in your contract, because there are quite a lot to find in your contract, and a contract should not be, I've also been a victim. You know, when I really want to go on board, and it's okay, yeah, sign here, sign here, sign here. And trust me, I just like, sir, where's the barrel, sir? And I pick the barrel and I sign. And I close the contract. Until my end of the contract, they show till I get another one. I'm not reading the contract. There is only one page I read, and everybody can guess that page, which is, what's my daily pay? Every other thing in the contract. But no, it's wrong. It's wrong because this is your fight. This is your right now. This is where you use your contract against the company. And I know, yes, many people might say, oh, in Nigerian system, it's not really looking nice and all those things. But yeah, we can still get up to international standard, but also look at yourself on international vessels as well. Because you cannot, and I repeat it, you cannot try and breach contracts, especially in countries like United Kingdom. Be it a seafarer's contract, be it even be it a landlord and tenant contract, you dare not. So this is how contracts really holds its worth. So I really want to employ you, really have an habit of reading your contract, getting some, and then your eye will be open. So I am even entitled to this. And so many other things I will discuss about the contract. So like I said, I will summarize what's the Title I again. Title I is the minimum requirement, which I started off by saying the minimum age of seafarer, medical certificates, then the training and qualification, and the recruitment and the placement. Another interesting part about the recruitment and placement 1.4 is every seafarer has the right to be given a job at no cost, from the seafarer to the shipping agency, shipping manager, shipping crew in anything, shipping agent, anybody in the office. So if I'm to be given a job and you tell me this, that, payment to be made, payment to be this, payment to be that, no way. As per MLC convention, it is wrong. It is a breach of the MLC. And that is and that is what 1.4 also is telling you about, the recruitment and the placement. At that point, I will off my mic. So and then now I come down to the Title II, which is the condition of employment. The condition of employment, the 2.1 starts off with your SEA, which is your Seafarers Engagement Agreement. Then it goes down to your wages, and it sets a standard for your wages, and it sets how your wages will be paid when it's supposed to be paid and up. Then it sets now another standard, it will be 2.3, your hours of work and rest. And then the hours of work and rest is a very major part of the MLC. And I will still come back to that, because like I told you, in 1.1, which is the minimum age, seafarers between age of 16 and 18 have a slightly different hours of work and rest from a seafarers above 18. So on the MLC, it's really stipulated and it states the minimum hours of work and rest there. Then entitlements to leave, which is 2.4. Every seafarers are entitled to a leave. And if I want to say one or two things, the seafarers might not know this fact. I say some seafarers might know this fact. And this has come down to an ignorance on this part of the MLC convention. I will not go much into that, but that's another point that MLC has really brought out and really stipulated as well. Now, the fifth one is repatriation. That's 2.5. And it says that every seafarer is entitled to be repatriated back to his home or origin or so. So if, for instance, you fly me from Lagos, Nigeria, down to China, it is my right for me to be flown back from wherever the vessel has disengaged me down to where you picked me from. So in cases where seafarers use their own, money or their own fund to repatriate themselves back home, is a breach of the MLC. So this is another part of MLC that we also need to focus, and it is also supposed to be found in your Seafarers Engagement Agreement as per the standard that is to be set by the flag state to the shipping. Does somebody want to ask a question there? Okay. Then 2.6, which is seafarers' compensation to ship loss or foundering. That would be 2.6. A shipper's compensation, as per the MLC convention, a shipper is entitled to compensation if, in any case, the ship has an accident, the ship sank, or whatnot, whatever emergency that might happen to the ship and the seafarer was on board, the ship owner is mandated to compensate the seafarer for his loss. And then another interesting part there, which unfortunately it has not been that popular, is the ship owner also is entitled to compensate the seafarer even when ship foundering has resulted in a case of unemployment. So my ship sank or it caught fire. Unfortunately, fortunately, my hands, everything fine. That doesn't mean I'm not entitled to something. But this is another part again in this paper. And after checking, you'll be very surprised to know that in one wordings or the other, this is also in your Seafarers Engagement Agreement, as long as the Seafarers Engagement Agreement is in compliance with the MLC, which, like I told you, there's a part 5, the flag state already are enforcing. I mean, the flag state already has the power, supposed to have the power and the responsibility to enforce. So, seafarers' compensation for the ship loss and ship foundering is also an entitlement for the shipfarer. Then we come down to 2.7. 2.7 talks about the manning levels. And as well, of course, in the SOLAS Safety of Life at Sea, we have under the certifications there, the Safe Manning Certificate, which sets a minimum safe manning for crew that must be on board your vessels. And of course, we all know that the number of crew on all vessels are not the same. It is due to, it varies due to size, due to operation, due to voyage, due to different situations, we put it that way. But the flag state, through with the safe money certificate, has to enforce a minimum crew that will be able to safely navigate the vessel from one place to the other, that will be able to allow the vessel to be handled in the case of emergency or contingency, that will be in a situation where the hours of work and rest will not be tampered with. So for instance, a ship owner is trying to save money, and instead of 2 second officers, you put 1. Or minimum safe money, yeah, we have captain, a chief officer, and a second officer. For let's say, for instance, a vessel greater than 3,000. But then, oh, there is no money now, captain. I will put only captain and second officer. I'll put only captain and second officer. That is a breach of the safe money certificate and also a breach of MLC. There's a breach of MLC. If, for instance, you are on board a vessel or a senior officer on board a vessel, and you have noticed that your crew, I mean, you are not sleeping fine, you're not having enough crew, maybe you're on the officers, or even in the engine room as well, you only have the chief engineer and your third engineer, and then you check your safe money, you're supposed to have a chief engineer, a second engineer, and a third engineer. There have been breach of the safe money, there have been breach of the MLC. And this is one thing that the flag state has enforced on the ship owners with these 2 conventions, the safe, the SOLAS, and of course the MLC with your safe money. And then the last one under Title 2 is a long one, but it's career and skills development and opportunities for seafarers employment. Careers and skill development and opportunities for seafarers employment. So that has, in a way, kind of explained itself. The ship owners also are mandated also to even train, and if not train, give some skill development for the office, I mean for the crew. Give opportunities for employment at no cost to the seafarer. That's why you see some very good companies are really taking this up, and they once in a while, I can mention some good companies, you know, they take it upon themselves to also do further training on the crew themselves. And that is where the need of even, you know, appraisers coming and the captains as well to train the junior officers, and everyone on board, one way or the other, are being trained, are motivated to move, I mean, to motivated also to be promoted. So with that, I'll move down to the third part, I mean the third title of the MLC convention, which is the accommodation, recreation facilities, food, and the catering. As per the MLC again, there are standards for accommodation. The accommodation must be conducive, and there are some accommodation, forgive me to say, that might be conducive for Chinese, but are not conducive for Nigerians. There are some that might be conducive for different countries and not be conducive for another country. But there must be a standard for every one of them. How is your accommodation? Is there enough ventilation? Can you go to duty and come back and sleep fine? This is what MLC is talking about. How are these guys living on board? That's why MCA come on board my vessel for inspection. They are really, really very, very keen on the accommodation. Where are you keeping your crew? Where are your crew sleeping? Where are your crew waking up? So for your vessel to be MLC satisfied, to have an MLC certificate, it means that your company has proved to your flag state, the Master Nigeria, MCA, UK, AMSA, Australia, different ones, that accommodation is very, very, very conducive for my seafarers. So that comes again down to even our right when we discuss it. If my accommodation is not conducive, there is a form you have to fill, which I think I've discussed that for. I'm not going much into that, but I will still discuss a little about the form again. Accommodation and recreation facilities. Yes, I know everybody will say recreation. Who wants to go into recreation? But no. As per the MLC convention, it's mandated that we have a good recreation facilities on board. And this, like I said, is the Bible that helps the seafarers to have a very good life at sea. But if you do not have the knowledge about all this, in exam, in practical life, in theory, you might be swayed around. And then that comes down again to food and catering, which is the second one under Title 3. The food and the catering. What is the quality of food? And for food and catering, the MLC mandated that every ship owner that no seafarer is to pay for his own food while he's on board your ship. No seafarer is to have a less quality food that he's supposed to have. No seafarer should be hungry. No seafarer should have bad water to drink. No seafarer should suffer in any way on board your vessel. If any seafarer is offering you are not compliant with MLC, and then you should not even be trading at all. Food and catering. The catering services, how is it come? Because there's food on one side. You just imagine there's food and there's no way to serve it, or there's no conducive way to eat it, or different way. So food alone is not enough. It's complete, the food and the catering side. At no cost to the seafarer, conducive to the seafarer, very comfortable to the seafarer, satisfactory to the seafarer on board. You mustn't allow your seafarers on board to suffer in any way. And like I said, it rests on the flag state because it is their responsibility for compliance and enforcement of the MLC. Then I'll go move down to the Title 4, which deals with our health protection, medical care, welfare, and social protection. The health protection, medical care, welfare, and social protection. Another Title 4, we come down, but it's also breaking down into segments, which is one, the medical care on board the vessel and ashore. So I go on a vessel now, and the only thing I see is paracetamol, and the vessel is trading international water. I swear I will make sure that an inspector visits that vessel. Or I go on board now, and there is no plan, or there is no available ashore medical care in case I have any incident, unprecedented accident or whatnot on board. It is a breach of MLC. So at no cost to the seafarer, again, I repeat, at no cost to the seafarer, the ship owner, as per the MLC convention, should ensure that on board there is enough medical care, and ashore there is enough medical care. Then I'll move over to the ship owner's liability. And the ship owner's liability, this started coming into force in, I think it was around 2017, where we have the ship owners liability convention and whatnot. And every ship owner for the seafarer, they are liable to the health and the safety of the seafarer. And there is an insurance certificate. I'm trying to remember the insurance certificate that a ship owner now must have for
repatriation as well.
Yeah, the repatriation liability certificate is there, and there is an insurance certificate that would be the financial
obligation.
I'll try to remember. It should be financial security liability insurance. Yeah, the financial security liability insurance. Financial security liability insurance. And what's this financial security liability insurance? It's an insurance which is the seafarer must have. I mean, not the seafarer, sorry, the ship owner or whoever representing the vessel must have. That he is able, and he has insured the seafarer's wages for 3 months ahead. So in case, for instance, one way or the other, they are not able to pay your vessel, the insurance will, they've already insured, I mean, they are not able to pay your salary or whatnot. They've already insured your salary. That would be financial, yeah. They insured your salary for a 3 months time. Also, health. There is also another liability certificate for that, and I'll check on later. At which they have also insured the health of the seafarers, but this one just coming into play of recent. So the ship owner also has so much liabilities in the context of making sure that the seafarers themselves are secured. They have good health, they have good medical care, they have good welfare, and they have good social protection. And also health and safety protection and accident prevention is the third aspect of the Part 4. And this, in a way, has also pushed it down to the ship owner. The health and safety of this crew, it rests on you. So you have to protect them. And also for accident prevention, you have to enforce it. And that is why you see them, they are always on safety, they are always on this, they want zero this, they want zero that, because they are responsible for you. Then, like I was telling you about, which is the fourth one, is the access to shore medical facilities. Every seafarer should have an access to shore medical facilities. And most of the companies in our work, you know, they have a medical facility ashore, be it in Onel, be it in Lagos, that, you know, the seafarer on board have an injury, accident, sickness, or whatnot, can be able to attend. And then that brings me down to the last title of the MLC, which is enforcement and compliance. And for the enforcement and compliance, we have the first one, which will be the flag state responsibilities. Because the flag state are the one responsible for enforcing the MLC convention on the vessels. And how did the flag states enforce MLC? I think it's time for question, and I'll start picking one or two people to to teach me how their flag state, how they think their flag state is enforcing MLC on board. So if I start with black map. This black map there. Kilo.
Yes, Kilo with you.
Yeah, good evening. So,
Good evening, sir.
Did you hear my question?
Come again with your question.
Enforcement and compliance of the MLC. How do you think flag states are enforcing? Or what steps do you think flag states are enforcing? Are taking to enforce MLC?
The flag states, I think for them to be able to enforce this MLC, they should be able to go for routine inspections on board, and to be able to see this, if the vessel, the ship, and the crew itself meets up the MLC requirements. So they should be able to go for a routine inspection on board vessels. So I think this is one of the ways that the flag state can be able to follow up.
Yeah, so they go on inspections on the vessel. So how frequently they go on this inspection?
I think if a vessel should visit a port, is an opportunity for this for the flag state to also go for this inspection. So I don't really know if there is a particular time or frequency they should just go for this inspection. But I think it's something that can be done randomly.
Okay. Randomly. That's fine. Does somebody else want to help me?
Captain Afolabi, thank you for the lectures. And pertaining the question, for the flag states, all I believe they could do is about the issuing the certificate, which is the MLC certificate. We have the initial, the intermediate inspection, which is the intermediate audit, and the renewal. So for the flag state, that is the best thing they could do. But if we are to talk about during these inspections, they have to see if the crew and the company complies with all these requirements of MLC. And also the post state also, like in Nigeria here, Africa, we have a Abuja MOU, which in every 6 months, a vessel applies this area would be subjected to inspections. So within this period, I believe at least a post-state inspection will board your vessel, and all these inspections will be done. So for the post-state inspection, they have to see all the certification of the crew, all the certificates of the crew, check the accommodation, check if everything pertaining to MLC is complied with. So I believe if both the flag state and the post state do this at the right time, the vessels will comply.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I would really say, like, yeah, you covered even my second part, because the MLC Title 5 Enforcement and Compliance has 2 subsections, which is, first one will be the flag responsibilities, and then second is the port state responsibilities, which, sir, you have just helped us in shedding light on how the port states, go out with this, with enforcing this. Well, there's something I really want us to really point out is for us to be able to enforce anything and ensure, and that's why I like the word, not only the enforcement, but the compliance. The compliance itself means something. Okay, I am complying with your, with your regulation. What is my reward for complying with the regulation? And then 2, I am complying with your regulation, sir. But then the other person himself will tell you, come, you are not complying with my regulation, you are complying with your own regulation. And that is where we walk back again.
I think Banks wants to say something. Banks.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Okay. Like the way you taught me, I'm referring to Capt Afolabi. When you talk about these things, and it really helped me in my hours, I start with the certification first. Because how do I comply with MSc? One, I must have a valid MSc certificate, right? So 1. And how do I show the flag state that complies with the MSc? Me, my company, my vessel must have a DMSc Part 2, which is written by my company or by my owners, showing compliance with MSc, which is specific. And DMSc Part 1 too, the flag states are written in that, okay, this is how I want you to comply with my laid down regulations regarding the MSc. So when the inspector comes, he is going to make sure you comply with what you have written down in your both the DMSc Part 1 and DMSc Part 2. And also you will check that, okay, the crew are, so all those items, the 16 items of the MSc, that's what you will go through to ensure that, okay, this vessel really meet all these standards. So that's what I want to say.
Yeah, thank you. I must really say that you hit the nail on the head. First of all, the enforcement has got to be with you have to have a valid MLC certificate, and your compliance is you are complying with what is being told, what you have been told to comply with, which is found in your DMLC Part 1 and your DMLC Part 2, which now contains how you now resolve in your own mind now to comply with the DMLC Part 1. So if you say I am complying, sir, and he tells you are not complying, he brings out his own DMLC 1, and he tells you that the minimum age I told you as per my flag state is 16, and I am seeing one 13-year-old boy on board, and you say you are complying, and then you bring out your own and say, sir, but I'm giving him hours of work and rest. He's a young person. No, there is now a conflict. That is how they carry out the inspections. And I thank you, Captain Joshua, when you're talking about, surveys. And that's when you have the initial survey. This initial survey first, prior to, giving a full-term MLC certificate, they will first give you an interim MLC certificate, which is valid for 6 months. Make sure you are compliant, and then they give you full. And then an intermediate survey, which of course it's the 2nd and 3rd year anniversary of the medical of the MLC certificate, and then your renewal again, your renewal survey, which is after 5 years for the renewal of your MLC certificate. So I think it was Kilo that was answering me. There are sometimes they will have to come on board and they will do some inspections. For the flag state responsibilities, their own inspection is what I've just stated now, what Captain Joshua has also said. the initial, the intermediate, renewal. But also there's another one called the voluntary, and this can be asked by the ship owner. And there's another one called the mandatory, but this is for vessels who are not subject to initial, intermediate, renewal, or voluntary. This mandatory can just, they can come on board and they can have an inspection on your vessel. So what KK was talking about is also the port state. But the port state also, which we can deal with that on another day, they also have their own timeline of inspecting vessels. For high-risk vessel, every once in 6 months minimum. 12. There's also for medium risk vessel. 12 months, and then for low risk vessels up to, and that is a different one entirely on its own for port state. But also port state can come on board your vessel for some other reasons, which I will not go there in today. But under the port state inspection, we have what we call an expanded inspection. And the expanded inspection comes away from detailed inspection. And the expanded inspection might go down into your MLC. And then they will carry out an inspection on your vessel. But also your detailed inspection might go also down into your MLC as well. But expanded inspection can just even come or whatnot from any angle or anything that you might have done that is not in line with, with the port state. So at any case, the port state also can carry out inspection. But for the flag state responsibility, it has to be by the books. It has to be in enforcing that you are carrying a valid a valid MLC certificate. And for you to carry a valid MLC certificate, this goes through inspection. And if at any point in time you are not complying with MLC, this meaning I came to your vessels last 3 years and I'm coming for an intermediate survey and I'm coming for a renewal survey, and I see that the accommodation, there's so much cockroach, the catering department, the kitchen, mess room, is not something, there are flies and everything, and you are expecting seafarers to sit down there. No, I'm not sure I'm going to give you, I'm not sure I'll be able to endorse your certificate or renew, your MLC certificate. So this is how they've been able to push and then comply with the MLC. See, I don't want to mention name, but OI, are you there? OI. Okay, it's not there. Is Technocommon, is it there?
If you ask the question, if it's simple enough, people will answer. We will jump on it if it's simple enough. Okay,
can everybody tell me if you have had a glance of your Seafarers engagement agreement, of your contract?
We looked at the money part.
They are opening up
now.
So OI, have you had a glance of your Seafarers engagement agreement?
Is that
no? Trust me, I was doing my own chief mate orals in in Lower Stuff. The orals was in Lower Stuff, and the ex-surveyor came down to MLC, and then he asked me, when last have you been at sea? And that was, I think, October, November, and I was just at sea in January before coming down for my chief mate UK. Okay, yes, you're very correct to say yes. And hey, what's the name of the ship? Fine. What's the crewing agency? Fine. Did they give you a contract? Yes, sir. So what was inside your contract? Name 10 things inside the contract.
Cricket sound.
This he wasn't trying to know my terms and conditions, but he was trying to know whether I understand MLC. And I am looking at this SEA to check if my SEA was in compliance with MLC. Now, one of the things that we'll find inside the SEA, I'll just give us the most obvious one. I started off, and as a student, you get to some questions. Forgive me to say, you might not know, but you need to just start saying something. And I started off by saying, sir, my name was there, but it wasn't a funny answer, because every SCA, your name must be there. It is, and as funny as it may sound, it is true. An SEA, Seafarers Engagement Agreement, should not just be a document that is just generic to everybody. It has to be specific to you. If your name is Busayo Afolabi, then this SEA is between company so and Mr. Busayo Afolabi. And then in the SEA also, as basic as it may sound, these are answers to oral questions. The name and address of the ship owner or representative of the ship owner. Very, very important. Yes, he was looking at me, but I was trying to, I thought I was being funny, but at the same time, when he was giving me the nod head, I was like, okay, maybe I'm really speaking some sense, but like I said, it is basic, but you should be able to remember that it must be there. Then where was the agreement entered into, the place it was entered into, the date it was entered into. And then also, if you are going on board and you call me from home like, okay, Mr. Busayo, we need your services on empty gifts or empty Jemima or something like that. As per MLC, I'm not just to pick up my bag and then go down to the ship or just go down to the office and then they give me a contract and it's okay, go to the ship. No. Where am I going to? We need your service as a second officer because of your qualifications. Because this has happened in different instances where seafarers go pick up their contract as a chief engineer, and then when they get on board, after one or two whatnot, I've seen such incidents, happen. And they say, sorry, you cannot be the chief. Sorry, we will need to bring you down to second engineer. Or they pick him as a second engineer, and they write the wages of the second engineer, and they write his capacity as a second engineer. And he goes on board, and he saw that there is a second engineer, but there is no chief engineer. So you have employed me as a second engineer. You are giving me the wages of a second engineer, but you want me to take in the capacity of a chief engineer. This is breach of MLC. He might be on board 2 months, and then you have been promoted. You are to request for a new SEA to show that you are now being promoted to chief engineer in the capacity that you hold. So, in as basic as it is, the capacity in which the seafarer is working must be found in your Seafarers Engagement Agreement. And then, if it's an indefinite agreement, is it an indefinite agreement? But if it's an indefinite agreement, okay, you are being employed by the company. And if there is an indefinite agreement, what is the period of termination? Because it gets to a point where, for some, well, I don't know how to say it in a nice way, but for some reasons, the ship owner look like we have lost our contract. The ship has lost contract with ExxonMobil. You know what? Let's reduce the crew. And then they call in the night, everybody should go. That is a breach of MLC. If you want to terminate my contract, there should be a reason why you're terminating my contract, 1. 2, if you want to, that means not contract, or indefinite employment. If you want to terminate an indefinite employment, then there should be a reason. But then if it's a definite contract, the date of the contract, and if it's a voyage contract, where you start from, you know, where you end from, and then other things can also be considered, you know, in this contract. And like I said, your repatriation and all whatnot. So these are basic things. So I really encourage us to have a look at this, because I think I was also asked again in my master's forums again, what is the details of your ML of your Seafarers engagement agreement. I will open the floor now if anybody have any quick questions to ask.
Okay, I don't know if there's questions, but I have a few comments. Just based on my own personal experience, I would say that a lot of captains don't like, or chief engineers sometimes don't like to request for extra crew, minimum money, or that when there's job. So I have had accidents at sea before, and I can categorically say that the accident was caused based on duress. You know, the crew was tired. So yeah, I've had accident with the bosun. The bosun had an accident, and I was looking at the bosun from the bridge, and I couldn't help, but it was duress. So sometimes it's better for us to please ask for help. At least put it in writing, so that if in case they say no, okay, and something happens, you say, I have asked for this before. All right. Now, like the contract, Captain Busayo is saying, there's something called the boilerplate. That's the word, boilerplate arrangement. So there's a standard form for everything. Just print it. I've had crew that come on board with a different name, different address. My address has been wrong on contracts before, and I will say, sorry, where did you get this address from? So it's good for us to check it, so that they just give us, you know, a boilerplate agreement and say take it. So they have to customize it. Accommodation. Someone asked me when we were doing anchor handling and said the accommodation is not fit to stay now because of the noise in anchor handling. But anyway, so yes, I've done noise surveys for some companies in the past. I think it's one of the conditions for them to be able to go through MLC, or I don't know. They requested for noise survey, so we can check the noise levels in decibels. Don't forget that. And if you feel there's too much noise in a particular place of accommodation as well, you can request for it, so that people don't lose their hearing. Because once you lose your hearing, I don't think you can get it back anyway. The food and water is a very serious one. We should know that. If there's concern, if a lot of, I think about 3 or 4 crew, 2 or 3 crew concerned about food and water, you must have it in your official logbook. So it is an important one for me anyway. If the cook is not up to date or up to scratch, they would go home. It is a paragraph 7 offense for me, actually, because what else do we have? So yes, how do we? What if the Captain Busayo, this question is for you, sir. What if the flag state is not in compliance? Like if they don't have syllabus. Anyway, off the mic. So how can we comply with when the flag state doesn't have a DM? I'm just asking now. If the flag state does not have a DMLC part 1, I mean, if they don't have a syllabus. Okay, sorry. Anyway, we'll leave that for another time. So thanks very much. I don't know if anyone has a question. If not, I think we've done an hour now. It's been very, very useful, Captain Busayo. Thanks for breaking everything down. I took notes as well. I really do appreciate it. And this will be online soon as well. So that I'm sorry, guys, I've not been able to upload the last one. Captain Busayo knows I've been extremely busy, but I'll try to do this. He pushed me to do certain things, so I'll soon finish. Then I would have more time. So thanks to Captain Oliver and Saint Captain Joshua. Thank you, Banks. Thank you very much for coming. Techno, come on. It's a pleasure having you. KK and Oscar Sierra. Thanks so much for coming. Captain Busayo, we hold you in high places. So much gratitude for your time and the job well done. Thank you very much, guys.
Have a nice one. All right. Yeah.